Over the fantasy football season. And here's a few wide receivers I would start this week. The first guy, Brandon Cooks of the Houston Texans. So Cooks, it was surprising to me he didn't get traded at the NFL trade deadline a few weeks ago. But Cooks on the season, pretty solid year. Pretty much we're not playing with a quarterback in David Mills, who hasn't shown much, in my opinion. The last couple weeks, he had a few good games and one bad game was Cooks. Week 8 versus the Rams, 6 catches, 83 yards and a touchdown. Week 9 at Miami, 6 catches, 56 yards. And then week 11, surprisingly, only 2 catches, 18 yards in a great victory for this Texan team at the Tennessee Titans. But right here in week 12, another good matchup for Brandon Cooks versus the New York Jets that give up the 13th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So Cooks and the Texans, they'll be back home in this one. The Jets, they've given up a lot of points on the scoreboard over the last 3 weeks. And I think Cooks in this one definitely can reach 100 yards and possibly find the end zone. So he's definitely a receiver I would start this week. The next wide receiver is Elijah Moore of the New York Jets. So right here, Elijah Moore, he's been picking things up over the last month of the season here. So the last 3 weeks for Moore, week 9 at Indianapolis, 7 catches, 84 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Week 10 versus Buffalo, 3 catches, 44 yards, and a touchdown. And week 11 versus Miami, another big ball game, 8 catches, 141 receiving yards and a touchdown, and 15 rushing yards. So right here, he's the number 1 target, in my opinion, is the rookie Elijah Moore for this Jet team. And he's got a good matchup with the Houston Texans that give up the 11th most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. So this game here between the Jets and the Texans, I could see a similar type of ball game like it was between the Miami Dolphins and the Jets in week 11. So right here, Elijah Moore, I think he has another good ball game in this one. And there's no way you could bench this guy after the hot streak he's been on in the last month. The next wide receiver is another Moore, but DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers. So DJ Moore, it's been an up and down season for him, but last week with Cam Newton under center, it was his best game in the last month for Moore in that one. 5 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. And a few games before that, week 9 versus New England, 2 carries in that one. He had 14 rushing yards, 3 catches, 32 yards. And week 10 at Arizona, 4 catches, 24 yards. So right here in week 12 at the Miami Dolphins, it's a great matchup for DJ Moore. The Dolphins give up the 2nd most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. And we just saw Jamison Crowder and Elijah Moore have good ball games and find the end zone for the Jets versus the Dolphins in week 11. So right here, DJ Moore, I think he has 60, 70 total yards in this one. And I think he could find the end zone for sure as well. The next wide receiver is Hunter Renfrow of the Las Vegas Raiders. So Hunter Renfrow, it's been a pretty solid season here for the slot guy over there in Vegas. And he came off the worst game in a while for him in week 11 versus Cincinnati Bengals. But he has another good matchup, in my opinion, week 12 at the Dallas Cowboys, where I could see him easily get 7 or 8 catches in this one for 60 to 70 yards, which is great PPR production. So the last few games here for Renfrow. Week 9 at the Giants, 7 catches, 49 yards and a touchdown. Week 10 versus the Chiefs, 7 catches, 46 yards and a touch. And week 11 versus Cincinnati, like I mentioned, one of his bad games this year, 4 catches, 30 yards. But right here at Dallas, they give up the 16th most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. I think Renfrow in this one, like I mentioned, he'll rack up the catches, decent yard amount in this one, and possibly find the end zone as well. But he's definitely a receiver I would start. In the 5th and final wide receiver I would start this week. We're staying in the same game is Michael Gallup of the Dallas Cowboys. So Gallup, he came off injury a few weeks ago in week 10 versus Atlanta, 3 catches, 42 yards. And week 11 at Kansas City, 5 catches, 44 yards, but he did have 10 targets in this one. So right here, this Dallas Cowboy receiving core, these guys are dropping like flies. Amari Cooper's out for this one for protocol issues. And CeeDee Lamb had a concussion in Sunday's game, and I don't even know if he could have a quick turnaround and pass the concussion test for this Thanksgiving matchup versus the Vegas Raiders. So right here, it leaves Gallup as the number 1 option if those 2 guys aren't going to go, which Cooper, we already know's out, and CeeDee Lamb's questionable. But even if Lamb plays, he's not going to play at 100%, and he's not going to play tons of snaps, in my opinion. So Gallup is the number 1 option here in Dallas this week. I think he could have a good ball game, and he's going to get peppered with a lot of targets in this one. So he's a receiver I would start. So that's a few wide receivers I would start here for week 12 of the fantasy football season.